Welcome back, everyone. Go ahead and grab your notebooks because today's explainer is honestly fascinating. We're looking at a tradition that millions of people around the world observe every single year. Think of it like like a spiritual training camp. We are going to unpack the Catholic season of Lent, what it is, why it holds such incredible meaning, and the actual daily practices that define it. So, whether you grew up with these traditions or you're hearing about them for the very first time right now, there is just a ton of rich history and psychology here about human discipline and compassion.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with what is Lent, move into why is Lent important, and then explore the three main pillars: growing closer through prayer, building discipline through fasting, and helping others through charity. Finally, we'll wrap up with the road to Easter. Let's jump in.
Section 1. What is Lent? Let's get the basics down.
Simply put, Lent is a massive 40-day season in the Christian calendar. For Catholics, I really want you to realize this isn't just some passive waiting period. Not at all. It is a highly active time used to spiritually prepare for Easter. And Easter, as you might know, is the huge celebration of Jesus' resurrection. So you can think of Lent as the runway leading up to that massive celebration, giving believers the time they need to get their hearts and minds totally ready for the main event.
Now, 40 days. Why 40? Actually, it's not just a random number pulled out of thin air. In the Catholic tradition, these 40 days directly represent the exact time Jesus spent fasting in the desert before he began his public ministry. I mean, just imagine that for a second. Spending 40 days in a harsh, scorching desert environment, completely stepping away from all the comforts of normal life to focus entirely on your spiritual mission. That is the literal blueprint Catholics are aiming to follow during this season.
Which brings us to Section 2. Why is Lent important? What's the actual purpose behind all this practice?
To really grasp its importance, we need to trace the timeline. Lent always kicks off on a very specific day called Ash Wednesday. From there, you have the 40 days of spiritual preparation. But wait, look at that little detail right there. Excluding Sundays. Yep, that is a great little fun fact you might want to jot down. Sundays are actually not counted in the 40 days. Why? Because every single Sunday is viewed as a mini celebration of Jesus' resurrection. So all of this intense, focused preparation builds up over those weeks to the ultimate final destination, which is Easter Sunday.
So on that journey from Ash Wednesday to Easter, what's the actual goal? Well, Lent is basically a dedicated time to hit the reset button. Catholics use this season to purposely grow closer to God. They spend a lot of time reflecting on their own actions, really looking inward to see where they might have fallen short. It's a specific time to say sorry for their sins, their mistakes, and actively work on becoming better people. All of this emotional and spiritual heavy lifting is exactly what it means to prepare spiritually for Easter. Okay, but how do they actually do this? It's one thing to say, hey, I want to be a better person, but how do you practice it day to day? Well, that brings us to the three main practices of Lent. Think of these as the three core exercises of that spiritual workout we talked about. Step 1 is prayer. Step 2 is fasting. And step 3 is helping others, which is often called charity or almsgiving. Let's break each of these down, starting with the first one.
Section 3. Growing closer through prayer. It's all about strengthening that relationship.
The core concept of prayer during Lent is actually incredibly simple, but it is so powerful. It's entirely about spending more time communicating with God. It makes sense, right? Think about any relationship in your life, a friend, a sibling, maybe a parent. If you want that relationship to get stronger, what do? You spend time communicating. It's the exact same concept here. During Lent, Catholics are asked to intentionally carve out extra time to talk and, just as importantly, to listen to God.
What's really fascinating here is the sheer variety of ways people actually do this. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all thing. It might involve attending extra church services during the week or setting aside time to read the Bible. It could be reciting traditional prayers or maybe just sitting in quiet reflection and meditation. But take a look at that last point on the list, the Stations of the Cross. This is a very specific, traditional Lenten practice. Catholics walk around the church following a series of images, the Stations, that visually depict the events of Jesus' suffering and death. It's a very physical, immersive way to deeply remember and reflect on his sacrifice.
Moving right along to Section 4, building discipline through fasting. This is all about the challenge of giving things up.
Now, fasting is probably the most famous part of Lent, right? But honestly, it's pretty often misunderstood. It essentially means giving up material things for a period of time. We're talking food, certain treats like chocolate or sweets, or even modern comforts like social media. Catholics also traditionally eat smaller meals and avoid eating meat entirely on Fridays during Lent. Now, I want to ask you, have any of you ever tried giving up your phone or your favorite app for even a single day? It is remarkably tough. So why do it for weeks? Well, you give up these material things to gain something bigger: spiritual growth and self-discipline. The physical feeling of missing something acts as a constant reminder of Jesus' ultimate sacrifice. It forces a shift in focus away from material cravings and back toward God. It's absolutely crucial for building true self-control.
Next up, Section 5, helping others through charity, or as I like to call it, love in action.
Charity, which is often referred to as almsgiving in the church, is the outward expression of Lent. While prayer and fasting are very personal, very internal things, charity is about looking outward at the world around you. Catholics believe Lent is a specific time to help people who are in need. And we're talking real-world actionable things here: donating money to a good cause, giving up your free time to volunteer, or supporting local food banks. But don't miss that last point on there. Charity is also simply about being kinder and more forgiving. It isn't just about opening your wallet, it's about shifting your entire attitude to be more generous with your patience and your love on a daily basis.
And the reason behind all of this outward action is pretty straightforward. Charity directly reflects Jesus' foundational teaching to love and care for others. By actually engaging in acts of kindness and giving back to the community, Catholics are trying to practically apply the lessons Jesus taught while he was doing his ministry on earth. It brings the whole thing full circle.
Section 6. The Road to Easter. Let's review the journey we've just taken.
All right, class, I want you to treat this as your ultimate study guide for today's explainer. Let's run through these key terms one last time to make absolutely sure they are locked in. First, Lent. That's the 40-day period of spiritual preparation before Easter. Next, prayer, the act of communicating with God to strengthen that bond. Then, fasting, building your self-discipline by giving something up or maybe eating less. Fourth is charity, stepping outside of yourself to help others in need. And finally, Easter, the ultimate destination of this whole journey, the celebration of Jesus' resurrection. Those 5 concepts completely summarize everything we've explored today.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this incredibly provocative question to chew on. Whether or not you personally observe Lent or even belong to the Catholic faith, how could 40 dedicated days of practicing intense self-discipline and actively helping others change you? Seriously, what kind of person would emerge at the end of that 40-day training camp? Think about that as you pack up your notes today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer class, and as always, keep asking great questions.